Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. Stay tuned until the end for a special offer. Hi everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another video. Today's painting was done using only black and white gouache, and if you want to check out a slowed down 40-minute version with voiceover, I have that uploaded to my Patreon in the form of a Q&A video podcast at patreon.com/happydartist. Okay, today I wanted to get real with you all and share some of my struggles from these past few months. I know I always try to present an atmosphere of encouragement and positivity in my channel, and I always hope that whoever watches my videos can feel inspired and pumped to create art. So honestly, I've been kind of debating whether or not to share some of my more pessimistic or negative experiences in fear that it would either trigger people or maybe scare people away from pursuing art. I don't know. But in the end, I thought no matter the nature of our relationship with art, whether it's a hobby or a school degree or a career, there are always going to be struggles. It's unavoidable. I think, in fact, that's kind of the nature of life in general, not just within the scope of art. But motivation doesn't just stem from listening to positive pep talks. It can also come from the comfort of knowing that someone else out there is in the same situation as you and knowing that you're not alone in your struggles. So hopefully me sharing my sadder and more difficult experiences can help anyone else out there going through something similar. Okay, so what I want to talk about is how these past few months, I've noticed a severe and steady drop in my enthusiasm and overall energy levels when it comes to work. At first, I wasn't sure whether it was caused by burnout or stress from some stuff in my personal life, or maybe just good old-fashioned artist block. But I noticed that the things I once looked forward to doing, I'm now kind of forcing myself to do. And no matter what, I've always tried to fulfill all my deadlines, contracts, and promises to clients, and I try to put my best work out there and not half-ass anything I do. But I just feel like this level of motivation came so naturally to me before. And even though I would work long hours, I was still so fulfilled and appreciative of the chance to even work at all that even a 12-hour workday wouldn't drain me because I didn't even see it as work. I felt like my battery was constantly operating at 100%, and every small new opportunity, every small win was so invigorating and would constantly recharge my battery without me even noticing or trying. And though I did still have days of feeling overworked or stressed or uninspired, those felt more like small bumps in the road that I could easily move past. It seemed like all of the positive experiences and positive feelings could greatly balance out any damage caused by the negative hiccups. So it just seemed like my battery levels always remained at 100% full. But nowadays, I feel like I'm maybe operating at 50% or less, and sometimes my battery dips so low that I'm no longer able to work at all. I've wasted so many days just paralyzed in this negative mental spiral where the thought of all the projects I have to complete terrifies me so much that I'm afraid to even get started. Because getting started means I would have to confront the possible failure of not completing these projects on time or at a level of quality that I can be proud of. And because I wasted time avoiding the giant pile of work, the giant pile only keeps growing bigger, and it just becomes a vicious cycle that I felt like has led me to doing the bare minimum to stay afloat, and whatever little energy reserves I have left gets spent on the few projects that have some sort of external deadlines from companies or clients. And honestly, I can't remember the last time I just sat down and painted something for fun with no one waiting on it or no one expecting it. And I can't remember the last time I used art as a form of therapy and relaxation just for myself. Nowadays, I feel like I'm just constantly chasing deadlines, draining all of the energy remaining in my battery until I get down to 0%, and then taking just forever to recharge again. And when I do recharge, it somehow never feels like I'm back to 100%. And for so long, I didn't know what caused this downward trajectory. I've wanted to be an artist all my life, and I've been so grateful for any opportunities that come my way, grateful to have this career. But what happened to that initial motivation and inspiration that came so naturally? What happened to that seemingly effortless work ethic? These past 2 weeks, I've kind of forced myself to sit down and confront this stressful topic that I had grown so accustomed to avoiding. And I think I finally figured out my problem. The culprit takes two forms, comparison and guilt, and they kind of go hand in hand. The saying that comparison is the thief of joy has never been more relatable for me. I realized that I had gotten used to a certain momentum and pace when it came to my work and productivity. When I first started my art career, I didn't have much of a foot in the door. I didn't have much of a resume or social media presence. I didn't even have an online shop set up. And outside of a few lucky instances, I virtually made 0 sales. So during that phase, any small success felt so monumental. I still remember how elated I was over making my first ever print sale in my online shop that wasn't to a friend or a family member. And that feeling that a stranger out there in the world connected with my art enough to adopt it into their home was a high that I rode for months. Even though I only made 1 sale in that quarter, that 1 sale gave me enough motivation to learn how to make my own prints at home, to research how to use fine art printers, inks, papers, and to eventually improve my website and make it more professional and official looking. And when I first sold my first original, it was the same feeling. I had never fathomed that someone might want to pay that kind of money for an artwork that I had created and conceptualized purely from my own mind. And it encouraged me to keep coming up with fresh ideas, to keep practicing my painting skills, and improve as fast as I could so that I could paint more challenging concepts. All of these little moments of validation and encouragement early on naturally increased my productivity levels. So even if I didn't make as many sales back then or didn't have as many social media followers back then, I had something even more valuable, which was my enthusiasm and my work ethic. That work ethic carried me through so many amazing months and years. And so gradually I started to expect that out of myself. And this is where the guilt part starts to play with the comparison. Over time, since I started to expect that pace and that momentum, if I ever fell below that bar, I would feel guilty. At first, I didn't mind the guilt much because to me, it was just a reminder to get my head back in the game and to step it up and work harder. I thought it was a good thing. I thought that it kept me humble and hungry to always continue learning. But as time went on, the guilt started eating away at the joy of creating art. The thought of taking steps backward scared me so much. I mean, how could I let my paintings drop in quality? How could I let my shop drop in sales? My social media drop in numbers? I kept comparing present me to past me. And anytime that present me didn't measure up to past me, I would feel guilt. And eventually that guilt snowballed into anxiety. And when I started associating art with anxiety, that's when it started killing the once natural, effortless enthusiasm. Now I was working to avoid my own self-criticism. I kept trying to work harder and work longer hours so that I could prove to myself that I still got it. And my motivation for working was now rooted in guilt rather than joy. Instead of working because I wanted to, I now worked because I felt like I had to. So ultimately, it just felt like I had gotten too greedy with myself. Every time I performed well, instead of celebrating that accomplishment, I raised the bar even more. And eventually, my bar was so high that it was impossible for me to meet or sustain. So I started blaming myself for failing. And I always blamed my failure to meet my own expectations, rather than realizing it was unhealthy of me to set those expectations in the first place. Yes, I did have exceptionally high work ethic, motivation, and energy during the first half of my career. But that kind of standard is not sustainable in the long run. Not only will life throw us curveballs, and sometimes our personal life will need to distract us from our productivity at work, but in general, it's unrealistic to expect ourselves to be operating at 100% 24/7. We have a finite amount of physical and mental energy. I thought my battery was constantly being recharged because I felt so motivated all the time, but in reality, I was draining that battery without finding the right ways to recharge. When that battery was depleted and I could no longer produce the same results, I thought the solution was just to work harder. But I didn't have 100% battery levels anymore. So of course I wasn't going to be able to produce the same results no matter how hard I tried. And rather than taking the proper steps to recharge my battery, I would just mentally beat myself up, which just drained my battery even more. And though I would take time off to socialize or travel, I think for the most part my intentions were misplaced. I wasn't taking advantage of that precious downtime to reset and recharge. Instead, I was still feeling guilty. I couldn't enjoy any time off because I felt like I should have been working instead. And the worst thing was, there were so many days I wasted not doing anything at all because I was too scared to confront that guilt and anxiety. So those days that could have been normal, productive work days, I ended up not doing any meaningful work. And if I wasn't going to work, I could have taken those days off as self-care days to help me recharge my battery, but I didn't do that either. Instead, I chose the worst option, which is to spend the day draining my battery in anxiety and fear, but also wasting a precious work day. Anyway, thank you for listening if you've made it this far. I really don't want to spend too much time ranting and complaining because I am super grateful that I get to do art as a career, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, even its ups and downs. So please don't interpret this video as me trying to gather pity or anything like that. I'm just simply putting this out there to the world in hopes that anyone else in a similar situation will know that they're not alone. And hopefully, if you see yourself in my story, this can help you avoid making the same mistakes I did. Finally, how do I fix this? Honestly, I have no solid plan or answer here, but I think the fact that I identified the problem is a good start. I'm also researching some good local therapists to talk to because I feel like there's probably more to uncover about this anxiety issue. And I also recently started being more open with talking to people about my fears, hence this video. I used to avoid sharing these struggles because I was afraid that admitting them would make them true, and I didn't want to admit that my dream career wasn't as perfect as I had imagined. But after talking to my fiance and my close friends, I realized that so many of them also have similar experiences. No matter what type of field we work in, I think most of us have been our own worst critic at times, and a lot of us have accidentally crossed the line of attributing too much of our self-worth to our value at work. And from now on, I'm going to actively put in the effort to rekindle some of my initial joy and sense of adventure in my work. And also the gratitude. I want to allow myself to feel grateful, not just to be able to do art, but also grateful for my own hard work and accomplishments. I'm also going to be more self-aware and catch myself when I start to fall into these toxic headspaces. So I will continue to share my progress and revelations with you all, if you're interested in hearing about this, of course. And anyway, I just wanted to thank everyone who has been on this journey with me, whether you're new to this channel or have been with me for a while. I'm so grateful for this community of supportive and amazing artists and art lovers. And if any of you have similar stories you'd like to share, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. I think we can really support each other if we're all going through similar struggles. And overall, I'm hopeful and enthusiastic about what's to come, and I'm excited that we'll be going through this journey together. And that about wraps up today's video. Before I leave, I just want to let you know the original for this piece was gifted to one of my patrons last month, but I do have prints available. And speaking of prints, since the holidays are just around the corner, if you want to pick up any art gifts for yourself or loved ones from my store, you can get 20% off your order with the code HOLIDAYSALE starting now at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. I wanted to quickly thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video and for supporting my channel and the art community. I've actually enjoyed using Squarespace for 4 years now to build and host my online shop and website. So whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and visit squarespace.com/happydartist for 10% off your first purchase.